I will tell everybody out there listening that we may launch the Obama deception early today or tomorrow because it's too vital to wait at prisonplanet.tv. And I was out of the studio during the break. John, do we have our next guest on from We Are Change Ireland, Keith Bryan? We're going to go to him in a moment. Webster Tarpley. Again, I want to get back to how to defeat these people. They are now announcing what they had currently and previously said they were going to do. Use the Obamanoids, and I have the quotes here in a story Kurt Nemo did out of Mainstream News. Canvass and find out, the exact quote is chilling, who supports Obama and who doesn't on a door-by-door basis, and pressure people. Exactly what you said with these multi-million man goon force. Now he's openly admitting, and the Army's admitting, a million-person civilian military force that after the military takes over a country, including the U.S., they're the bureaucracy. I mean, it's all happening. So how do we defeat this?
Well, as I write in my latest book, which is Surviving the Cataclysm, just published by Progressive Press last week, actually, first copies of Surviving the Cataclysm now going out. The main thing is political organizing. The thing with Obama is an illusion, and it's an illusion which is very fragile. And I think you can see already the signs that Obama is beginning to get bogged down. As long as he was running for office, he could make promises 360 degrees. He promised everything and the opposite of everything. Once you're in office, you've got to come down and make certain decisions, even though those are hidden. Right? There's a tremendous propaganda effort to hide the fact that the essence of Obama is $10 trillion to the banks with an unlimited blank check. If you looked at his State of the Union address, he basically said, we will do anything for the banks. He doesn't say we will do anything for the homeless or for the auto industry or for anybody else. Only the banks. The more that this can be understood, I think, the quicker the illusion of Obama will collapse. In other words, he can crater very easily because it's all based on hysteria. You can already see that in the financier community, there are some people who now think more that he's an incompetent, that he's not an effective crisis manager. You have among the swooning, drooling liberals at the New York Times, people like Maureen Dowd. They're beginning to think that he's maybe not the Messiah that they thought. He might even be a false Messiah. So
they're already preparing to blame. They're already preparing to blame everything on him when he's just a puppet minion. Here's the quote here.
Precisely.
It says his new organization, Organizing for America, will be going door to door to map out and identify support. To map out. I mean, his goons are hitting the street, and they're trying to sell his financial system and what he's pushing.
Well, don't open the door, right? Don't let them get their
No. Open the door and give them an Obama deception.
Yes, if you have one. Sure. That's great. Counter-organize them. That's better. Counter-organize them.
Shouldn't we go to Obama meetings? I mean, we have usaservice.org with a map of every meeting in every town and city. Shouldn't we go there and lovingly explain to them, you think you're repudiating Bush? This is Bush on steroids?
I suppose you can. I would urge people to look at the big picture. Right? You can always call into these big sort of Wall Street-controlled talk radios. You can have a tremendous impact. Again, I recommend political organizing. A lot of people are looking at apocalyptic scenarios, right, that it's going to come to some kind of civil strife. I don't think we're there yet. I think it's time to try politics. And
we see the globalists are hyping that.
Well, you've got to have your own program to get out of the depression. I have one, right? Wipe out derivatives, seize the Fed, issue zero credit for production, have emergency federal relief, and set up a new world monetary system. 4 points, you get out of the depression. That's the big prize. The gold ring in this whole situation is who does know how to get out of the depression? Geithner, Volcker, Summers, Obama obviously don't. Neither did Bush and Paulson. And it's got to be this method of wipe out the derivatives, seize the central bank, start making that a national bank.
Okay, let's stop there. Let's stop there. They're already doing a counterfeit of what you just said. They're claiming the Federal Reserve is federal, not private, and saying they are going to nationalize the banks, when in truth it is the private bankrupt banks coming in to take over with government power. So how do you educate folks that we're not seeing a nationalization right now? We're seeing a privatized looting taking place.
around this issue of derivatives. In other words, the derivatives are the heart of the five big money center banks that we mentioned before. If you wipe out derivatives, you've essentially wiped out those five banks because they are really zombie banks, right? They've always been zombie banks. They don't lend for plant and equipment. When GM, Ford, and Chrysler were about to go bankrupt last December, the zombie banks did not come forward. We just had Circuit City collapse, 35,000 jobs, 600 stores. Where were the zombie banks? The zombie banks don't lend. They're getting money from the TARP. They're getting money on the Federal Reserve bailout, which is 10 times bigger, and they're not lending. So these banks have got to be wiped out. The Federal Reserve has got to be seized, nationalized, and then you begin issuing your 0% credit for production only, not for financial services, not for speculation. Not
a lot of economists say that it
fraud.
shouldn't be a classical tariff either. It should just be a tax incentive when industry moves to the United States.
Well, I've talked about this in the following terms. If you got Count Dracula on the victim, you got to rip Count Dracula off the victim, put a stake through his heart. But now you've got a victim who's basically about dead. You've got to administer a transfusion. That's your federal 0% credit, plus oxygen and a defibrillator, and that's your program of large-scale infrastructure, 100 nuclear reactors, coast-to-coast maglev railways, commuter rail, all this, and your 3 science drivers, your space program, your biomedical, and your high-energy physics. And that starts both sides. It's true. It's not enough just to offer lending. You've got to generate demand for borrowing because you're in a panic. You're inhabiting the negative curvature of the inside of a collapsing bubble.
Webster, they've already brought us, and I'm going to go to our next guest briefly here, have him back on the next few days for a more detailed report. This is very important, that we're already so deep into it. Some are saying it could be irrevocable. And so after our next guest leaves us, I want to briefly talk about if they allow total implosion, how would you change your plan after that point with your perspective? But Webster, we know the British have been caught over and over again. More than 75% of the terror attacks in Northern Ireland, and England, being staged by British Special Air Services, right. MI5 and MI6. They're now kicking this off again. And I said yesterday, in fact, at the start of the show before I'd seen the latest article, I said, will there be a drill around these 2 British soldiers being killed? A drill of the exact same thing happening. We already know that the security services and military stood down even as they saw them shooting and didn't fire back. That is now mainstream news. This is the Belfast Telegraph. Soldiers shot dead in Northern Ireland terror attack. The attack happened just 36 hours for Northern Ireland Chief Constable Sir Hugh Ord confirmed that undercover soldiers had been called in to carry out surveillance operations on dissidents, and amid warnings that the threat against his officers and military personnel was at its highest for almost a decade, that they were doing drills. Here's another one. This is out of the metro.co.uk. I guess this is the one in the Metro. Guards stood by as soldiers murdered. Armed security guards employed to protect the army barracks stood by as gunmen killed soldiers. 2 soldiers were shot dead in the shooting at the barracks in Atrium, Northern Ireland, but armed security guards employed to protect the military base did not open fire on the terrorist, even while they stood over the injured men and fired further shots, the Times has reported. I want to bring up right now We Are Change Ireland, that has just done an absolutely fabulous job. Keith Bryan, or Byrne, you can tell me how I pronounce that, Keith, I always get it wrong, to tell us what's happening. He alerted us, well, I called him this morning, and then he alerted my producer that there were these other articles confirming what our suspicions. So, Keith, good to have you on from We Are Change Ireland.
Alex, it's a pleasure to be back on. I think last time round we were all upbeat about our victory against the European Constitution known as the Lisbon Treaty, but this time round it seems like things are a little different. So it's great to be on, and hello to Webster, Tarpley too.
Hi there.
Okay, you're there in Ireland. Give us the breakdown on what's happening.
Well, Alex, I think there's a lot of ambiguity going on. People aren't quite sure what happened or what is meant to happen out of this. As we know that there were 6 people shot there on Saturday night. 2 of them were pronounced dead, and they were 2 soldiers of the British Army. There was 2 other soldiers hit with bullets, and there was 2 other civilians which were just delivering pizzas to the barracks. I actually did some investigation earlier, the way you were saying when I was speaking to Rob, and I came across some interesting things. The actual people who provide security on these bases is called NISGS, which is the Northern Ireland Security Guard Services, and they are normally armed with weapons, and they also patrol their bases. It was confirmed from an army source in the actual Australian news that it is regular procedure to fire back upon an enemy who is attacking. That is a regular procedure. These did not fire back. They stood down. And as you just said, they actually, when the shooters came over to, let's say, unload again another time, they actually stood back and they let that happen. And
now, the same thing happened last week in Pakistan with the attack on the cricket team. Perfect propaganda to outrage cricket fans, tens of millions worldwide. It's almost as big as soccer in many areas, don't know, in the U.S. And the same thing there. Mainstream news is saying, was it an inside job? Because the government, there's police right there, and the shooters shoot, calmly take their time, walk right by the police. Nothing's done. This stinks to high heaven. Webster, I mean, it's the same M.O. every time.